First statement is merriment, frivolity can bring one to sexual licentiousness. So I don't have too much to say on that. I guess just the obvious. What?
Nothing.
Just the obvious that if somebody gets too, I guess, too flirty or something like that, it could lead to dangerous things. It's interesting. Rabbi Akiva is talking about this. I don't know to think about how this connects to his life in some way. Anyway, the next one is where we want to put our energy. Mesoret siag l'Torah. This is tradition is offense to the Torah. Okay, so what is Mesoret? How is Mesoret offense to the Torah? So Mesoret is tradition. So the way I went in the book is I basically said something like, "What?" Before I do that, how is our tradition? It doesn't define what Mesoret is. Mesoret could be tradition. Mesoret could be like teachings that were relayed from generation to generation about how to pronounce words a certain way. Basically, some Mesoret means to transmit. Like when someone's passing a basketball, passing the ball, right? So you're passing something on. Why is that offense to the Torah? What do you think? We can go many different ways with this.
Well, it's not changes. People from just deciding to make a change just because.
Yeah. So it protects us from changes that could be dangerous, right? We want to abide by our tradition. We have we have all kinds of traditions. Some make sense, some make less sense. I don't know. It's the other day this actually, some people find great meaning in this, but it's not a tradition that's done a lot of synagogues. We read all the names, all the Yortzeit names in shul. Not a lot of shuls don't do that. B'Chim and Chamar. And now Nisan's about to come in, and so Rabbi Akiva is reading all the names for Nisan that are supposed to be read, because you don't recite Kel Maled during the month of Nisan. So every day is plopping in like 5 days of names. So taking away from our Divrei Torah, we have to shorten them, but whatever. So like the question is like, why are we doing it? We do our tradition. It's our tradition. People have a lot of traditions. There's some weird traditions people have in their families or whatever. We have traditions. And so like sometimes if you go too far, you're consistently creating new things. You can move far away from your traditions. And you can move far away from the tradition of the Torah. And so that's like a fence. That maintains the Torah. It's to have traditions in place. There's I think it's an amazing story. It's such a fascinating story from our tradition about the author of this mission is Rabbi Akiva. Okay, so I've said it many times. It's a wonderful story about Rabbi Akiva, and it has so much depth and it has so much to think about. Here's the story on page 116. When Moshe sent on high, he found the Holy One, blessed be He, engaged in attaching crowns to the letters of the Torah. What are the crowns on the letters? If you look on page 117, there's crowns, and on certain letters of the Torah, there's a system behind that. I don't really know it. There's different types of crowns. I mean, there's three-prong, there's one-prong.
The trump when you're reading the Torah?
No, it's decorative. So it says Rabbi Akiva used to be able to know what the meaning was behind the different crowns. He was on that level. But Moshe Rabbeinu didn't really. We'll see in a moment. Just a quick note on this picture on page 117. I wanted to include a picture, but then I realized publishing the book and I have to get they're copyrighted. So what did I do? I searched online. I tried to look for free ones. I didn't find something that was good. So I just went up to the shul and took a picture of our Torah and I just put it in here. So that's how that picture got in here. Oh, Moshe said, Lord of the universe, who stays your hand? Meaning, who is holding you back? Why can't you give the Torah as it is? He went up on high and Hashem was about to give the Torah. He says, why are you doing this writing on the Torah, putting crowns? Why are you doing that? He says, who's holding you back? Why can't you just give it as it is? Why do you have to attach all these crowns to the Torah? Okay, this is at Har Sinai. Okay, sorry. So God answered, well, why am I putting all these crowns on the Torah? God answered, well, there will arise a man at the end of many generations, Akiva, Rabbi Akiva, who will expound upon each dot and mark heaps and heaps of laws. I mean, he'll learn out many, many laws from every mark in the Torah. Okay, so Moshe Rabbeinu was like, whoa, I got to meet this guy. This guy, I mean, if he's going to be able to know all the answers to these crowns, he's going to interpret them. I have to meet him. So let me see him. So this is one of the at least three examples of time travel in the Tom was in a time travel story. So God replied, turn around, go backwards. You can read it either way. Moshe went and sat down. So he turned around and like poof, he was in the future in Rabbi Akiva's class. Hashem placed Moshe Rabbeinu in Rabbi Akiva's class. Now, Moshe Rabbeinu was going to sit in Rabbi Akiva's class. It's like Einstein. You could picture Einstein sitting in some other. I mean, Moshe Rabbeinu is the top, right? So we could say like Einstein sitting maybe in a top scientist class, but Einstein's another level, right? Or some type of genius sitting in another smart person's class. But you would think he would understand everything and just be like, "This is boring." But Moshe Rabbeinu was not like that at all. Moshe went and sat down behind 8 rows and listened to the discourses upon the law. He sat in Rabbi Akiva's class many years later. He listened to all the talks about the Torah. He wasn't able to follow anything. He didn't know what was going on. And so it says he was deflated, like he got sad. Why was he deflated? We have to think about that. Why was he sad? We have to think about that. So when they came to a certain subject and the disciples said to Rabbi Akiva, so how do you know this? And they were talking about some topic. Rabbi Akiva was saying his opinion. It was this complicated discourse. And the student says, where do you know this from? Rabbi Akiva said, oh, it's a law given to Moshe at Sinai. Moshe was there. Yeah, Moshe didn't recognize any of that stuff. And it says Moshe Rabbeinu was comforted when he heard that. The story goes on. There's a lot more to this midrash. But the question is, why was Moshe comforted at that point? Why was he deflated beforehand? What does it mean that it was halakha Moshe is given to Moshe at Sinai when Moshe himself didn't even understand it? So what do you make of this story? What do you think?
Like you and what you both, it's like a combination of these things.
Yeah. So like, I don't know if I'm why my mind always goes to basketball, but like the founder of basketball, Joe Naismith.
Yeah.
So if he would come to the NBA today, he'd be like, this isn't what it's basketball. I had like a bucket, I put it on. But after a while, if he understood the history of it, he was able to see how it developed. He'd understand that this is a more modern form of it.
Maybe it would be like Newton to like quantum mechanics or something. You know, maybe it'd be like Newton seeing the work of time travel to Einstein. You know,
Yeah, that's what he said. That's what Harry said.
Down the fundamental laws of physics.
That's exactly what Harry said.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't hear it. Okay.
All right. Okay. We have to kind of be careful.
That was perfect, though.
That was good. Okay. So we're all intuiting the same thing. So Moshe Rabbeinu received like the principles of the Torah. Throughout the generations, they expanded on them, they applied them, they developed them. And so once he understood that Rabbi Akiva is not doing his own thing, that he's innovating, he's adding new ideas, but from within the Torah, he was comforted. And so that's kind of how I understood the story. That's kind of the message I wanted to tease out in relation to our Mishnah. Tradition is offense to the Torah. If you read the last paragraph on page 117, it says, tradition is this may be Rabbi Akiva's teaching. So I'm going to put on the screen here. This may be Rabbi Akiva's teaching when he says tradition is offense to the Torah. We are allowed, even encouraged, to innovate in Torah learning. Bottom of 117. The Torah is never meant to remain static. Moshe knew this, as is evidenced in this Talmudic story. If innovation was not an integral part of tradition, he would have remained uneasy with Rabbi Akiva's teachings. He didn't understand, but he was comforted nevertheless, because he understood that if it comes from the Torah, he's okay with it, meaning he wasn't against innovation. Notwithstanding, innovation must extend from tradition, and the innovations need to be developed using traditional tools. They keep going on the next page, 118. People install fences in the yards to mark how far their territory extends. They also do so for protection. When it comes to creative interpretations and applications of Torah principles, there's a lot of flexibility, but that flexibility isn't infinite. So it must be done in a way that protects tradition, extending from within the territory of Torah. If you think of the fence, we can extend the fence, but it has to be from within. You can't put a fence on someone else's property, so you have to extend it within your territory. It's a big territory. Torah is a big, there's a lot of people could be on the playing field, but we have a playing field. This is the recipe for Judaism to remain relevant and authentic today and for years to come. It's very important to keep updating and keep innovating. It's also really important to keep the tradition. Yeah.
With every fence, there has to be a door to let something in and to let something
I
in.
love that. That's really great. Do you hear that at home?
That's great.
Yeah, yeah. So it said, with every fence, you have a door. Really, that is true. Our tradition, every generation has brought in stuff from the outside, contrary to
Yeah,
what
that'd be great.
sometimes is said, like we don't accept anything. We've always accepted things from the outside. There's really been like different camps in terms of what we bring in from the outside. Alan Brill, Professor Alan Brill, he has a blog. He's a pretty popular thinker. And he said that it's funny because now I can hear everything everyone says. In my class, I can't always just so far. So he says there's like four approaches to things coming in from the outside. He says there's the people that exclusive, like they're people are exclusive. I forget the word he uses for that. Says there's the ones who are inclusivists. There's ones who like are pluralists, and there's individuals who are like I forget the word he uses. Universalists or something like that, meaning like the pluralists basically say I have truth and you have truth, and really in the end it's like we're different expressions of truth. It's the most open-minded, I wouldn't say not gradient, just like most open to other views. Then you have like I think what he calls the universalist, I think, where it's like they say we're all a lot of the things we could take in from the outside world, we don't even have to convert them. There's things that are just so universal that that anybody can say them, like love your neighbor as yourself. Like we say it, other traditions say it, like teachings like that. They're like universal. Then there's like teachings which is like you have to kind of convert and bring in, but you have to be suspect and leave out other stuff. Those would be like inclusivists. Then you have a group that just like has always been like we're not including anything. They've been kind of really separate. So out of all the four, only one of them is exclusive. The other ones have different modes of engaging the outside world. The crux of it is really number 2 and 3, the inclusivists and the universalists. Really, pluralists is like kind of more of like a modern direction, more like the progressive thinkers say that. So, all right, so that's a little bit, but nevertheless, we have to stay strong and rooted in our traditions. All right, let's keep going here. What other examples do we have in the Mishnah? We have Ma'asra, tithing is offense to wealth. We talked about that once. Okay, so we're not going to talk about that. All right, now let's go to the next one. Meaning tithing is there's a tradition that if you tithe, give a tenth, you will not lose out. If you give a tenth of your income, you can, there's like only very rare that you can test God. This is a place where our tradition says you can. You give a tenth, Aser b'shil to teach Asher. Give a tenth so that you can become wealthy, meaning that that will be returned. There's a concept like that. It's a step of faith. Not easy to do. And then we have vows are offense to abstinence. So vows are not really encouraged in our tradition, making vows, because like we're afraid people won't follow through with them. But those who have made it, that can help you sometimes stay in line with your goals and agenda. Like if you make a vow, I'm going to do this. I'm making a vow. There's a certain way to do it. That can keep you in line with your goals. The last one I want to focus on, though, is offense to wisdom is silence. So why does silence lead to wisdom? And how can we relate that to Rabbi Akiva? What do you think? You could throw out any idea. Traditionally, we would say, I guess, that you become wise, you have to speak a lot. So you engage in conversations and you can learn that way. Why would we say wisdom? Silence leads to wisdom. You can throw out any idea.
I think it's listening.
Listening, yeah.
Listening.
So multiple people said listening. Yeah. So if you're able to kind of quiet down and listen, you'll be able to hear. And I think that's what Rabbi Akiva did. This is connected to Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva first started his career. It says he didn't know anything. He listened to his wife. His wife said, "Go learn Torah." He listened to her. He went to go learn Torah. Where did he start? He started in a classroom with kids. He started learning the Aleph Bet. So he sat down. He was a stage where he was very quiet. After he got to know a lot, he started to speak. So there's a time when you take in information. It happens at any job. You're new to your job. Hopefully, you're not starting off the top, just like telling people things and sharing your idea. Like take in, understand the setting, understand the surroundings, get some experience. And then you can share your feedback on things, but like it doesn't seem smart to do it the other way.
So did Rabbi Akiva come up with a lot of innovation or a lot of?
Yes.
Okay, and do people credit him from his past of not growing up with these things, that more learned people would have? People credit him being able to see the ways that things could be moved around and still stay in the tradition because he came from outside.
It's such a good question. Like it's such a good question. Like people, I haven't gotten the sense that people felt around in his time that he was like this Baal Tshuva, somebody like a newly religious person who's saying foreign things. He was always seems to be very widely accepted. It says in his first, it says he had like 12,000 students after his first 12 years of studying. I guess he was some sort of prodigy, very smart. Interesting thing though, he wasn't learning until he was age 40. He was angry at the sages for some reason. I don't know. He looked at them and so he looked at them with anger and disdain, and like he wanted to. We learned this once. Like he wanted to bite down on the bones of the rabbis. Kind of like a unique type of description there. Somehow Rachel, his wife to be, she convinced him and opened up his heart, and she suggested that he go learn. I guess she saw the potential, and so he went out and he started to learn from the very beginning. I guess he was a very like a prodigy, a very God-fearing, and I guess that kind of like showed. It says he came back after 24 years with 24,000 students. Something happened though. His students ended up all dying. He ended up having 5 more students after that. And through those 5 more students, our tradition was rebuilt. So people, I don't know, think about what happened there.
He came twice, didn't he? He came once and then she sent him away.
Yeah, he came
He overheard.
after 12 years. He came back home and he wanted to like say hi. They were just FaceTiming the whole time. He wanted to actually, so no, but like it says after 12 years, he came back and he overheard his wife saying, I wish he would go back and study for another 12 years. And it says immediately he ran back and went go study for 12. So you can understand it literally. I've always kind of read that. Like you imagine he was in touch with her in certain ways. And like that was the direction he got that he should go back. And after just, I don't know. I'm imagining there was some discussions.
There was still.
Yeah. Maybe a letter. I don't know.
The way we do today.
Yeah. I don't know.
It's an
What?
interesting story.
Yeah. There's a lot of lessons there. So sometimes like you'll hear an idea and then immediately you'll have a response, or like you'll immediately think you have an answer to it or something, where sometimes it's good to like give some space for the idea to percolate, to think about it, to process it and let it work with your whole system and try to kind of fit it in. So I think it's good also, that's the silence that sometimes leads to wisdom. We have to give space for new ideas and be open to them and like let them cook in a way.
Within yourself.
Within yourself, yeah. Not just in relation to others, in relation to yourself. Another one is also like silencing. I saw the commentator say if you silence like other conversations, we talked about this a lot, like sometimes being overly engaged in other stuff take you away. So silencing unimportant conversations so you can engage in the important ones. That's also, but that's kind of a common theme that we've been stressing throughout. So those are some thoughts on that. I want to read you 2 texts here. I have this is an interesting, this is Wisdom Ethics from Sinai. I've been using this a lot this year. Like every time I teach this, I kind of try to take another book that I focus on. So this is the one for this year I've been working with. He says something about the other denominations. He says like this. Reform and conservative. Again, I'm not like giving a harsh critique of them. Like there's different good aspects in every group. Okay, I'm reading what he's saying. Then Reform and conservative Judaism continue to this history of schism today. Like its predecessors, Reform Judaism has been unable to show 3 consecutive generations of Jewish life. For every generation that enrolls in Reform Judaism, it seems to serve largely as an exit from Jewish faith and Jewish identity. 1 or 2 generations later, Reform must replenish its ranks from the more traditional elements in Jewry, who take their place in this exodus to spiritual oblivion. Reform Judaism suffers from a logical culmination of its own doctrines. By consciously imitating the Christian by emphasizing universalistic values, underscoring brotherhood as the primary quality to seek in establishing religion, grandchildren of Reformed Jews are automatically pointed in the direction of intermarriage, usually follow their noses. So he's saying from its enemies, both without and within, through the generations of history, is our Masorah, our sacred tradition that protects the eternity of Torah. He's basically saying if you detach from, he's saying like kind of like a strong way, but if you detach from the tradition, you create an opening, a breach that can create an opportunity or like a reality where the future generations they move out of the fence. And so you really need to think about that in terms of the next generation and the lessons that we teach. How important tradition is that it keeps them in, it keeps the next generation, it keeps our family safe, keeps our next generation safe. So I want to read to you Rabbi Wahlberg's Torah on the children from the Pesach. Rabbi Riskin actually says this. The wise child represents European roots, the generation of the grandparents who came with beard and earlocks, dressed in strimal, etc. Their progeny, the wicked child, brought up within the American melting pot, rejected the parents' customs and ways of thought. Okay? And then you have the third generation becomes the simple child, confused. They watch their grandfather making kiddush, but their father standing by silently, presents perhaps resentfully, impatient to prepare for business on Saturday morning. The memory of this grandfather, though strong at one time, is fading. So the confused simple child can only ask, Mazot. The fourth generation is a child who doesn't know how to ask. The offspring of the simple child. Meaning each generation, if we don't have strong roots and tradition, it gets less and less. And so that's kind of what he's saying, but he's using the denominations to explain it. He says the fourth child doesn't even know how to ask questions. And he says the fifth generation is merely hinted at in the Haggadah. This generation is so far removed that doesn't even know it's Passover. So that's the fifth child. So, yeah. Sharing, I think that all of us, everyone should be focused on trying to have strong roots and tradition. Otherwise, all of us, the Orthodox as well, we're in danger to have the next generation feel detached. That's kind of what I was trying to say. So let's do the next mission. I'm doing another mission, whether you like it or not. Okay. So page 119. 119. Someone's phone.
That's almost like somebody's address, isn't it? Actually, you might want to skip to the next one, because I think the next one's even more interesting.
I really like this one. But what's the next one?
Back in next year.
What's the next one? Oh, the next one's really interesting too. We'll have to have a cliffhanger, something to look forward to.
Bring us back together.
All right, so I love this mission. I love kind of the source I brought to connect to it. So let's read it. So Rabbi Akiva, second statement of Rabbi Akiva. He used to say, "Beloved are humans, for they were created in the image of God." So everyone, Chaviv Adam Shinivra B'Tselem. What a beautiful idea. All humans were created in the image of God. How does he know this? It's in the Torah. The Torah says Adam and Eve were created in the image of God, and we're all descendants of Adam and Eve. We're all our descendants of Adam and Eve. So we all have this tselem, this divine image in us. Now he says, especially beloved are those to whom it was made known that they have been created in the image of God. So when it's made known to us that we're in the image of God, it's even better. So there's different ways to understand this. One way is to say that God created us in the image of God, but God didn't have to let us know. When God let us know, God was kind of showing us this great affection. You can be in love with your spouse and not express it to them. Or you could be in love with them and you can express it to them. It's a higher level. When they hear, you share it with them. You know, you tell them, I think you're special. You have the divine image, whatever word you're using, right? But like that's one way to understand it. Like when God made it known to us, it was showing us that we're especially beloved. Another way to understand this is that when it becomes known, when it's made known, when you make your image known, then that's even more beloved. Like you can have the divine image, but when it's nodat though, when it's something that like you're aware of and you kind of manifest, that's even higher level. So if you're aware of your divine image and you do something to bring it out, it's even better. It's not just enough to say, "Oh, I'm creating the divine image." We have to really bring it out because there's all these opposing forces that can play against that. Next one is Israel is beloved. They were called children to the all-present. Okay, lamakom. So, yes, Sandy. So we are called children. So interesting. So the non-Jews or the broader world, all humans, they're not children to God. Obviously, they're all children. God created everybody. But like this idea that God chose us for a specific purpose, we are God's like chosen, and we're defined as God's children in that way. So there's a certain choosing, there's a certain like designation, yeah. So we have that designation. We're considered banim, and it's even more if we know that. If you know that you're Am Yisrael, you know that you have a certain mission and a direction. That's especially important because if you're just chosen, but you don't know your purpose and your function, you're not going to be able to manifest it. So it's even more when you know it, even more important, more beloved. The final thing is Am Yisrael gave us the Torah. So we were given a precious vessel. It says Kli Chemda, right? And Kli Chemda, a vessel that's like that's precious vessel, and even more so if it became known to you. Meaning we have the Torah, but if you don't know about the Torah, you know how special it is. So you won't be able to benefit from it or really connect to it at a deep level. So I mean, that's kind of like you see a lot with people who might have grown up religious, but at a certain point they get much stronger. They grow up religious, they take it for granted. They learned all these things in day school, but they took it for granted. And then at a certain point, they leave the fold and then they come back like, wow, I really understand, appreciate what this is. So if you really appreciate what the Torah is, you have much more beloved because you can really connect to and elevate yourself to a high level. So we have three things here. We have humanity, we have Am Yisrael, and we have the Torah. So I was reading this, and it seemed to align very well with this distinction that Rav Kook makes in one of his books, which is Orot Tchiyah, where he says that there's three. He talks about he's defining politics in Israel in his time, but it's true for every generation. He says, take Israeli politics, for instance, take American politics. There's people who are fighting for different ideals and values. He said the three main values that are consistently being fought for are universalism, nationalism, and religion. And many times they connect. You can have religious nationalists, you can have religious universalists, you can have universalists who are not religious. So he says, but he says these are the three values. And he says when he was looking at the politics in his time, he found that there were nationalists, there were people who were building up the land, and they were trying to establish the Hebrew as our national language, and they were settling the swamplands, and they're very nationalistic. Then he saw there were universalists, people who wanted to be more like the nations, who wanted to be open to the arts and literature and to look beyond our confined circle and see and take in from the outside world and be part of the nations. And then you have the religious intuition, which basically puts as their main goal maintaining traditions, maintaining the law, Torah. And so you see a lot. If you take a look at Jewish politics in Israel, for instance, today, it's shifted a little bit more nationalist since October 7th. But back for many years, you had the left, you had Meretz, you had Avoda. They were a little bit more universalistic, thinking about secular values, thinking about broader culture. And then you have those on the right, politically in Israel, like Likud, or those are even further right than them. They're many times focusing on the nationalistic components. We have to settle the land. We have to peace, no land for peace. On the left, we need to make peace with those around us. That's more of a universalistic value. But on the right, this is our land. We should never give up a parcel of our land. We're giving you just examples. Then you have the religious movement, which is like, I don't care about land. I don't care about peace. I want the yeshivas to succeed. I need money for my institutions. So really, And I'm not even defining what's good about it. I'm describing what is the reality. And you could take this distinction between these three and plant it on any discussion, really. You have I brought in the book, you apply it to the immigration discussion. So what's behind some of that debate? These values many times are like, if you take the nationalist approach, which is like we need stronger borders to protect our country. And you have the universalistic approach. It's like, listen, we were all once immigrants. People need an area of refuge, and so we should try to have more openness to finding ways for people. So, and then you have, I don't know what the religious component would be here. To think about that. So I was thinking, Rabbi Akiva was speaking about that here. He's speaking about those three levels. We have the tzelem, and we have the humans are created in the image, humanity. We're children to God, Am Yisrael. We're like chosen for a certain mission. That's the nationalistic value. Then we have the religious one, which is the Torah. And so what Rabbi Akiva is saying, I could be saying, so what Rav Kook's message is that even if we are on one of these camps, we're fully religious. All we're thinking about are religious things that we need, like the religious ministers and the religious parties in Israel, just thinking solely about the religious needs. He says it's not enough just to be in your own lane. You might have a certain strength, you might have a certain like affinity towards a certain one of these values, but you should be open to being able to see that other people are speaking from other values. Even if you're a strong universalist, to understand that the nationalism you could see where they're coming from. You might not agree with them, but they're not necessarily speaking from always a bad place, speaking from a nationalistic place or somebody who's very religious. Be able to see they're speaking sometimes out against universalistic values because they're trying to maintain tradition. They're trying to maintain Judaism. And so they're not necessarily always be able to be open to seeing that people are speaking for different perspectives, different values. Rabbi Akiva could be saying that. He said, it's the more we know, no dalan, the more we know that all these three are true, the more we're able to kind of be able to be more favorable in other people's eyes, be able to kind of get along better. So he's saying you'll have even more favor, more love, you'll be more beloved, the more you know that these three values are that people, all of Am Yisrael is made in these three ways. And so we have these three values that are always at play. The more we know it, the more we're able to get along with each other. So it's really like Rav Kook was trying to say, like, it's okay to be who you are. You take a view, take a stance in any of these three directions, but have openness to see that there could be other values and people could be speaking from them in an impassioned way.
But I think at any one point, at different points in our, on different issues, we can be a universal.
Totally.
All these things that
All these-
are us, are
Correct.
and us. And
Totally.
we can respect
I think that's what
us,
Rabbi,
we can respect others.
I think that's what Rabbi Akiva is saying.
Yeah.
Rabbi Akiva is saying that like all three of these things are true, and they are true for everyone in Am Yisrael. We all have the tzelem, we all have a universalistic side in some way. We all have this nationalistic side. We all have this religious intuition. And so a lot of our debates sometimes revolve around the fact that we're highlighting one at the expense of the other. He's basically saying we all kind of have these values in some ways inside of us.
So when you talk about awareness here, awareness that we're made in the image of God, and the other awarenesses, he's talking about these things that those are in us also.
So I'm trying to read it like this. It's my reading, but he's saying the awareness is be awareness that you have that in yourself, being aware that is part of Am Yisrael's makeup, and to know that people are speaking from these other values as well. Yeah. And that will lead to people being understood or experienced as more beloved. You'll see other people as more beloved. You'll experience that way. Rav Kook was trying to get people to get along, and he wasn't trying to like remove them from their passions and from the things that they feel very strongly about. But he wanted to open up pathways for people to be able to be in dialogue. You can only be in dialogue if you're able to see these as important values. Sometimes if we strip away the ad hominems and we kind of get to the crux of what someone's saying, we can see that many times it's coming from a certain value. If it's a value that we don't highlight, we don't stress, or we don't think is important in this context. But many times it is. If you can get there, you can have more beloved connections. That's kind of how I'm reading that.